Well, good morning or afternoon or evening, whenever you're watching this. We're going to go over today lesson 5.3 in your book. We're going to use your book for most of the notes. We're going to talk about function notation. To put it simply, function notation is writing functions instead of using y equals. We're going to use a letter and then x. Very often f is going to be the most popular. Just like we could do anything with y, we could have z equals, but we usually do y. So how we read it, we're going to read this as f of x. And even as it says there, it's equivalent to y. So it's the same as writing y equals 9 minus 4x. But we're going to write it as f of x equals 9 minus 4x. F is just the name of the function. It is not something you solve for. We don't do anything like that with f. It is just the name of the function. Why? Well, if I had y equals 9 minus 4x, and let's say I had another line, y equals 4x plus 12, and y equals 12x minus 7. Now the same numbers, all that in there. Well, instead of saying, well, the first one or the second or the third one, and maybe you have a different order, I can name them. So instead, I could call this f of x. Then, and I'm writing over those, I could say, oh, that's g of x, and this is h of x. So I can be specific as to which function you're talking about. So, oh, take the h of x function. That's the one I want you to use right now. So that's why we have function notation. We're not just saying, hey, let's replace it with something else for no good reason. Okay? You can see the math tips there. We stated this. It doesn't mean f multiplied by x. You're not solving for anything there. For a domain, we're going to use the x. The range is now the f of x values instead of y's. Okay, so when we're looking at these, let's go down to the second one. A lot of what we're going to do is they're going to say evaluate the function, which just means plug and chug. So for example, they give you one here. If you want to plug in for x is 2, you could write f of 2 equals 9 minus 4 times 2. And then when you get your answer, you write it like this. F of 2 equals 1. You do not solve for f. I would jot that down. Do not solve for f or g or whatever the letter is that's there. So a lot of people have gotten here before and they divide by 2 and they get f equals 1 over 2. No, 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 no. Leave it alone. That's our answer. And the nice part is our answer is basically like an ordered pair. It's saying, hey, you plugged in 2 and you got 1. Whereas if you had a normal function with y equals, you would have just gotten y equals 1. I don't know what you plugged in to get the answer. I know y is 1. This lets you know that, hey, when you plug in 2, you get 1. That's another value of writing it this way. So, for example, here, if we use the same function, 9 minus 4x, and it asks what is x, or what is it when it equals 5? So I plug in, everywhere I see x, I plug in 5. So f of 5, that's just letting me know what I plugged in, equals 9 minus 4 times 5. I'm done with this side. This is the side I'm solving, really just simplifying. 4 times 5 is 20, so 9 minus 20 gives me negative 11. So f of 5 equals negative 11. That's it. I'm just going to write my answer down like that and no more. Okay, now I'm not going to do all of these. Let's do negative 3. So I'd say f of negative 3 equals 9 minus 4 times negative 3. Notice when I plug in, I always put in parentheses for a very specific reason. Okay, now I see two negatives make a positive. 4 times 3 is 12. 9 plus 12 gives me 21. So f of negative 3 is positive 21. Okay, so that's the basics of it when we're looking through there. Okay, we'll go to number 4 here. So now it says, what if the function f of x equals 9 minus 4x, what value of x results in f of x equals 1? So what they're saying with this one is we're basically going to work backwards. It's saying f of x is 1. It's like you would know y. So I plug in 1 for all of f of x equals 9 minus 4x. I have no doubt you could solve that. So when it gives you and it says f of x is this, you plug that in for all of f of x and then you solve. So sometimes we want to know, hey, what did I plug in? I'm going to go over here with it. 1 minus 9 is negative 8 equals negative 4x. Divide by negative 4. Two negatives divide to be a positive. So we're saying there, hey, x would have been 2. Okay? So sometimes we will go backwards with it as well. Okay? Now, for number 5, you could do some of those on your own if you want, but it's just saying for each different one, so they're showing it's different. There's an f of x, a g of x, and an h of x. Plug in those two numbers. So you'd plug in chug and do work with those. Let's take a look just at letter C, and in particular how it's written. Let's do h of negative 5, because these are the two we want to plug in, equals 2 over x is negative 5 squared. So if you're not sure with squared, you could plug them in your calculator, but here negative 5 squared would give me a 25. Positive, because negative times a negative gives me a positive. So h of negative 5 equals 2 over 25. Okay? All right. Other ways to look at things with it. Sometimes they give you what we call a sequence. A sequence is just a list of numbers that has a pattern. 4, 7, 10, 13. So take a second, think about the pattern. Looks like the pattern's plus 3, right? 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 3 is 10, plus 3 is 13. But they're showing you here and saying, okay, well, what's f of 1? Well, the first term is 4. The second term, f of 2, is 7. The third term, f of 3, is 10, and so on. So they're saying, all right, well, what about this one? What's f of 3? Well, I'm literally just going to go, you could put above or below and say, okay, that's the first, that's the second, that's the third. Oh, f of 3 is 0. It's just the third number in the sequence. What's f of 7? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, the seventh one is 8. So sometimes we're a list of numbers instead of having to plug and chug for a particular set of numbers. Okay, so that's it. You know, you could try some here. Let's do maybe one more 8a and try p of x equals 3x plus 14. Let's just try the 0 one. We don't have to do all of them right here. So I'm going to say p of 0 equals 3 times 0 plus 14. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 14 is 14. I just want to make sure I'm not writing 14 as an answer. Still write it in function notation. P of 0 equals 14. And if you're plugging in with squared, so let's look at B. I'll write it over here in the note side. Let's do negative 2. So h of negative 2 equals negative 2 squared minus 5 times negative 2. Now, you can type that part into your calculator exactly as is. Parentheses are important there. Or we could just do the math. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Negative 5 and negative 2 is positive 10. So I get 14. You don't have to rewrite h of negative 2 for every step, but in the final answer, I do. So I'm saying h of negative 2 equals 14. What's that mean again? When you plug in negative 2, you get 14 for this function. Okay? So, function notation, just a different way to write it other than saying y equals, but the idea is the same. We're going to do more plugging and chugging. Sometimes you solve, sometimes you're just given a list that's a sequence. Just a different way again. So, function notation, different way of writing it instead of y equals. Have a great day.